Thanks for checking out this movie review video. So this is for the 2018 film Possum, and I had heard about this film and I'd heard that it's really creepy, it's really disturbing, and there are those elements to it. I don't think to the degree that I've heard people say, but then again, everyone's experience is very individual with films like this, so some people who are super disturbed by things or creeped out by things might not be that same way for other people. So anyway, I did enjoy this film, and just so happens that when I'm dropping this review, that night we are doing a watch party for it through Scener and Shudder, and this is available on Shudder when I'm doing this review. So if you're interested in watching it, go check it out. I will be doing spoilers for this. Usually I don't do spoilers for newer films, but I'm considering 2018 at this point like fine for me because that's 3 years back, almost four, depending on when the film came out, since it's about to cross into 2022. So there will be spoilers in this. But yeah. This one's written and directed by Matthew Holness, who also did Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which I've heard of, but I've never seen. No experience with it. So if you've seen it, let me know. Worth seeing or not? Put it in the comments. He wrote, directed, and starred in Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, by the way. Apparently, he's mainly been known for doing comedic stuff, so for him to do a film like this was very different, especially for him writing and directing something like this. He didn't act in it. He actually got a person by the name of, I think his name was Shawn Harris. I think I have it written down here. Yes, Shawn Harris. Shawn Harris played the titular character of Philip, who I think did an unbelievably good job. I'll comment more on that at the very end of my review, but it bears repeating. He did a phenomenal job in this film, and a lot of the success of how this film plays out has to do with his performance. I mean, more than just a lot, like a ton of it, just almost the entirety. This is actually based on a short story that was written by Holness that's in a book called The New Uncanny Tales of Unease. And you can see the unease at play in this actual film. Holness has said that he prefers horror films that linger with you and force the audience to think about it after it's ended. I do think that he got that down, because once the film ends, you do kind of think back to the start of the film, how everything was slowly unfolding, the traumas that Philip's character is reticent to actually deal with, but finally does by the end of the film. And it's with how the atmosphere is created, how creepy it is, how kind of dark and disturbing it ends up being at certain times, and that puppet, let's not forget that wonderful puppet Possum that is very creepily designed and is the thing of kind of nightmares, which is obviously the point of this. It does do a good job of sticking with you for that reason. So I think he hit that. Holness apparently fashioned the puppet after his fear of spiders, but in the original story, Possum was actually made up of dead animal parts. So I do think the spider aspect is probably scarier than the dead animal parts, but then again, I guess I would have to see how they would have executed the dead animal parts portion. The puppet was apparently difficult to work with because of all the puppeteers that they actually needed to operate it. So getting shots of it, or at least what they wanted for it, was kind of tough. I could see that. For the most part, they don't actually move it a whole lot. Usually when you're seeing it, you're seeing like little bits and pieces. And any movements are kind of, it seems like it's cut a little bit short. But I actually like that aspect of it. I think that less movement of it makes it a little bit creepier, makes it a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I'd say kind of up to your imagination how fast maybe it could move at some point, or I don't know, just like the slow movement and the fact that you don't see a ton of it just makes it so much creepier for me. Especially like that part where like the head just kind of like peeks around a corner in a dark hallway, or the one where he's in the garage with all the leaves, and then you see like the legs like one by one coming down from above the garage. Really cool. Dig that stuff. I really like the opening with the dark rhyme and something starting to come out of the bag as it cuts away. That's kind of your first hook into the creepy atmosphere that's being created, into the what is this puppet actually looking like? What's in the bag? What's this all about? Obviously, Possum is really the baggage. You know, it's the baggage, it's the trauma that Philip's been carrying around for his entire life that he needs to deal with, but he's having such a hard time actually getting himself to deal with it. And that's why the movie kind of ends up being as slow as it is, because the whole time he keeps going back and forth about, you know, getting rid of Possum versus deciding not to eventually get rid of Possum. And it's so hard for him to part with it because it's been a part of him. And, you know, it's shaped who he is. It's hard to confront those things. And obviously by the end, he actually does that, and he doesn't just confront it by getting rid of Possum. He has to fully get rid of Possum by dealing with his father, the person who's caused the majority of the trauma in his life. So the Possum is more of like a focal point for him personally, to be like, if I deal with this one thing, I'm dealing with all my issues, but it's actually his father. And so his focus isn't in the right place, but eventually he gets there. It's just baby steps, basically. The shot of someone stopping and staring before going into a house serves well to show the hesitation of a character. This has been done in a lot of films before. It lets the audience know there's past or present conflict within. I really like the way it was executed within this film, with the nice kind of brooding music behind it. You see Shawn Harris as Philip just kind of like taking his time, just really staring, and you could just like see the gears in his head just going and just thinking terrible things, thinking, do I even want to go into this place? And obviously that's where his stepfather, Uncle Morris, he calls him, has been living, and apparently he hasn't seen him in quite some time. So this is where he needs to go. It's another thing he's reticent about, not just dealing with Possum, but going even into the building where Uncle Morris is, because that's the source. You know, he brings Possum there because in order to get rid of Possum, he has to deal with Uncle Morris. The score is nicely unsettling, but the really high-pitched noises are way too much and really, really hurt my ears. This is an issue that I have. I don't know if maybe my ears are too sensitive. My wife actually says all the time that I have ridiculous hearing. So I don't know if that's just me, but those super high-pitched noises, I understand it's meant to be like more shocking, more unsettling, but you can take them up to a certain level that's not going to hurt people's hearing. Because I found myself at multiple times when they did it, and they did it a few times throughout the film, I literally had to turn the volume way down so it wasn't literally hurting my ears. That is one of my biggest pet peeves in films. I hated that. That is one of the things I hated most about this film. From the first scene together, you can feel the tension between Philip and Uncle Morris, and it's possible the dilapidated building that they're in is supposed to reflect the decay of their relationship. Also, probably... actually, maybe not even the decay of the relationship, maybe the state of the relationship when it first started, and it has remained that run down and decayed forever. For that reason, I think that setting is perfect for this story. Everything's very dark. Everything's very brooding. I don't even think at any point you see sunlight showing up. It's just very solemn and morose. When the missing teen aspect is introduced to this, you start to see Philip's actions and demeanor as a little bit suspicious. In fact, I personally started to suspect that maybe because of all his trauma and because of all his issues, Philip was dealing with everything that he had going on in his life by being a serial killer, in essence. I thought maybe in the end we were going to find out that he had actually abducted this kid and murdered him at that point. Obviously, at the end, we find out it was Uncle Morris, and that this is something that's been going on, and one of the main things that's caused trauma within Philip's life. But they do a good job of kind of leading you to suspect that maybe it's Philip, so it is kind of a nice misdirect in that sense. And it also starts to make you feel a little weird and uneasy about this main character, because at first you're kind of feeling for him because you're like, oh, he wants to get rid of this puppet. Obviously, he needs to deal with these traumas that he's had because of Uncle Morris. But then once you start to suspect, maybe he abducted that kid because he saw him on the train, and they make a point of showing him really watching him and then kind of following him once they get off the train. That's when you start to feel conflicted, and you're just like, should I be feeling for this character? Because by the end of this, maybe he's a murderer. Just saying. So I like how they played that out. When you finally see Possum, it's like, why would anyone own something like that? Yeah, so for that reason, I think it serves very well to be like a very creepy puppet within the story, but it doesn't really serve the realism of the story in a sense because nobody would have a puppet like that and be a puppeteer for kids because that's what he says. Like, he was a puppeteer for kids and he would use this puppet? Like, I don't think so. Note that the face of Possum looks like Philip's face. That was obviously intentional because it's supposed to be mirroring the darkness, the trauma that is being projected onto Possum that is Philip himself. You know, it's another version of Philip, basically. It's his darker side. You get a good sense of the antagonistic relationship that Philip has with Uncle Morris when he's laughing and reading his diary aloud. When they first meet each other, you get a good sense that there's some tension. Like, you can feel the tension. You can see the tension there. But then you start to really understand the antagonistic nature of that relationship once he shows up and he's reading his diary out loud and, you know, laughing about it and openly mocking him. And there's not even anyone there for him to, like, joke about it with. So this guy's, like, super mean-natured. Because, you know, there are people who, when they're, like, one-on-one with a person, they're totally nice, they're good people, but when they get into a group, they can kind of like be pressured into being a bit of a jerk. That's not Uncle Morris. Uncle Morris is just always that way. Like, he just wants to make fun of people, make them feel awful, and really terrorize them. That's the idea you get, especially with the ending where he pulls down Philip's pants and is flogging him with the belt. I mean, it's taking him right back to childhood, and that's when he does eventually reach his actual breaking point, where he snaps and he takes everything into his own hands and does away with Uncle Morris. But I am getting ahead of myself a little bit. I love, and this may be my favorite scene because of the visuals of how it looked. The black smoke when it was rising through the bunch of balloons. It's not like a high cost effect to get. Like, I'm sure that did not cost a whole lot to make to get that shot, but it looks creepy. It looks dark. It looks visually interesting. And I just really love that aspect of it. The candy from the jar, I do believe, does a lot to kind of represent Philip's childhood and maybe the memories involved with Philip's childhood. One of the points where he's actually trying to eat one of those candies from the jar, notice that he's like retching, like he's about to potentially throw it up. It's him trying to swallow the trauma, trying to swallow the memories of what was going on with his childhood and him having a hard time because his body's trying to reject that. Very well done. The black rain scene, that's another really awesome scene where he's outside just kind of sitting in front of this kind of like weird little building. It looked like maybe like a power, you know, some power converters there or something. I'm not a technical person, don't get on me about it. And he's just like looks up to the sky and it starts to rain black, and just the way it like washes over his entire face, just very well done, that scene. And I think that was supposed to be showing him kind of being consumed by those dark thoughts, consumed by his dark past. The way they do the limited movements of Possum is more effective and creepy. Kind of already talked about that. Oh, I do have to point out jump scares. I usually don't get hit by jump scares, but the jump scare in this, when we find out that Uncle Morris was actually in the room and he's wearing that ski mask, he just like jumps out of the corner of the room, out of the shadows, and you had no clue he was there. That got me. That was an excellent jump scare. And I think that what helped deliver that jump scare is that there hadn't been other jump scare attempts. There were really no jump scares in there until that moment. And for that reason, when you just do one jump scare like that, people are going to be kind of lulled into this false sense of safety that there won't be jump scares, so they're not as guarded. So everyone's just watching is like, oh, things are happening, and then boom, jump scare. And it gets you. You're open to it. So really liked how that was done. So in the end, Philip knew about Morris abducting kids, but wasn't strong enough to stand up to him and do the right thing. But he finally does it in the end. And that is his form of actually dealing with the trauma, actually dealing with all those dark parts of himself that he struggled with for the entire film. And because you see him struggling so much, the film is slow on pacing, but I still think that it worked really well. I'm a huge person who likes to knock films for being super slow, but in this case, it's slow, and I could see where some people wouldn't be down with that. But the way they maintain the atmosphere, the magnetic performance of Shawn Harris, those things helped keep my eyes trained on the film. Also, the fact that with credits and everything, it's only like an hour and 25 minutes. So you're not actually invested for a super long time. It's on the shorter end. Shawn Harris, to repeat, Shawn Harris does a phenomenal job in his role as Philip. He is so meek and morose in the way that he looks and delivers lines. The other thing is he even has like a slumped posture when he's walking and kind of like this light way of walking. So note that if you go back and watch the film, or if you go watch it for the first time, that he's oftentimes like very slumped down, and you can just tell that he has no self-confidence. He really doesn't have any self-esteem. And then his personality kind of changes at the end. You can see more of like a fire to him. You can see him become stronger when he finally takes on Uncle Morris. So, and then that's when he also lets the kid go, the abducted teen. Like I said, the film does seem slow, but at the same time, you don't mind because you're captivated by where it's headed. Yeah, that's another aspect of it. I really did kind of feel like I didn't fully know where this film was going to go. I knew what was going to happen, that he would eventually deal with his demons, deal with his traumas, but I didn't know what that would end up being or how that would look. So it did keep me kind of on the edge of my seat. Plus, it just, with how much it kind of showed just little bits of Possum, it gave you the sense of like not knowing what was going to pop up when and where the film was going to go and how dark it would be. So I think that really kind of helped. Yeah, so I really, really liked that aspect of it. And yeah, it kept me glued because I really was looking for where we headed with this. Also, I kind of had a feeling at some point, obviously this didn't come to fruition, but I had a feeling that maybe Possum would actually come alive. And I think that was kind of intentional because I think people were supposed to start focusing so much on Possum in the beginning, thinking that maybe it's like a creature that comes to life and actually torments him, and then eventually realize, oh no, Possum is just a surrogate, basically, for him dealing with his traumas and past issues. Possum is literally the baggage Philip has been carrying around his whole life. He's afraid to face it, but he knows that he has to. And that's why they keep having all those scenes of him getting rid of Possum, but then running back and freaking out. You know, like the time when he drops the bag in the water and he's walking away, and then he like runs back and he's looking, or he throws it in the fire, but then after it's actually burned, he runs back and like starts sifting through it. And even Uncle Morris is like, what are you doing? Like, what are you looking for? So that just kind of shows that like he's having such a hard time. He's like, no, yes, I'm going to do this. No, I'm not going to do this. Yes, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. And I think part of it is he's afraid, because once you take something that's literally a part of you, something that's literally shaped who you've become and what you are, once you take that away, once you dissect that from your body, you don't know what's going to be. You know, what's going to be left over? What does that do to you? What fills the void that is left from it? So I think for all these reasons, this is a good film. I really do enjoy it. And out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm giving it a very solid 3.5-star rating. And I think people should check it out. If you're one of those people who thinks it's particularly disturbing and creepy, let me know in the comments. And also just in general, if you want to talk about this film, let me know in the comments. Obviously, we can talk spoilers because I talk spoilers in this. So let's do that. Do me a quick favor, though. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much. You are the best. If not, it is quick, painless, costs you $0. Sorry. And it is your way to keep me motivated and to repay me if you like this video or any video I've ever done. So please consider that. Also, consider hitting the notification bell button. Some days. Hit the notification bell button. That way you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, whether it's these in-depth analysis videos like this one, or my no spoiler movie reviews for even newer stuff, or my haul videos, unboxing videos, opinion videos, all that jazz. But regardless, I really do thank you for taking your time to check this out. And until next time, Keep it brutal.